Hello and welcome. This is Paul Sandhu on Saturday, October 1st. I'm doing a short video here of I was flying yesterday. So as the plane was on the ground ready to take off, I saw another plane coming in for a landing, and I shot this video out of my window. Now the point that I want to make here is that this is a short video, but what it proves is it proves the limits of the human vision, the lens of the eye, as well as the limits of camera lenses. Because one of the arguments presented in regards to the flat earth is, if the earth is flat, why can't we see Mount Everest from everywhere? Well, the answer is very simple, that human vision has a range, okay, as well as a camera lens or a telescope. It has a range, especially along the horizontal plane, okay, where the atmosphere is densest, closest to the surface of the earth. It has, the atmosphere of course has many pollutants, you could say, like dust and smoke and clouds and other things that give us a limited range of vision on a horizontal plane. And you shall see in this video, let me just play this here. See now, right there on the sort of in the middle bottom left of the screen is this plane that is going to be coming in for a landing. If I'm on the runway and this plane is in the air coming in for a landing very close to the ground, it's not obviously not that far away. At best it'll be maybe a mile or two away when I started shooting this video, okay, but yet it just looks like a speck in the air. It looks very small, and as you move a little closer, again you can see the plane's getting a little bigger, but it is still quite small, and yet it is very close to me. And again, here we go. As we move along, you can see now it's getting bigger, but it still looks like one of those small Spitfire, fighter planes from the Second World War. It doesn't look very big at all. Okay, and then there we go. Even and when in the middle of the screen here, you can see this plane, and again it is not that big, yet it is very close to me. Okay, so what that is showing again is that our vision and the camera lens, the further away an object gets, especially in a horizontal plane, the smaller it gets, and it gets small very quickly. Okay, so here we go. So now the plane is starting to look a little bigger, and we can kind of make out that it is a twin engine plane. Okay, and then let me just play this here. Now this is kind of, as it got like almost in front of me, that's when the true size of this plane actually became apparent, that this is a passenger plane. Although it's a propeller plane, it is a twin engine passenger plane which holds maybe 40-50 people, so it's a fair size plane. It is not the same size as a jetliner, but it is still a big plane. See, there you go. So in the right hand corner of the screen, now you can see this plane in its fullness. So this is what happens when people are looking at something, especially horizontally, not up in the vertically up in the sky. Our range of vision is very limited. Okay, it is so limited that we can at best see a few miles in front of us. So you tell me, with that limited a range of vision, both for a camera and for the human lens of the human eye, how are you expected to see even like into the next county, never mind Mount Everest? Okay, it is a ridiculous argument. It is one of those fake arguments that is presented by people who know very well that, it's called the visibility. Like when you get into a plane, for example, they make an announcement, visibility today is 7 miles. So basically they can see 7 miles ahead of them, and that's it. So that's the reason why you cannot see Mount Everest from anywhere on the earth, even though it is a flat plane. Secondly, this video, for example, is a good way of understanding the fakery of things like satellites and the International Space Station. See, like this plane being so close to me, yet it was like so small. Now, imagine that this plane is put 400 miles above us, or a plane double the size, or three times the size of this plane. Okay, with the ISS is not much bigger than that. Okay, that it is put 400 miles. Like this was not even 4 miles away. So it was put 400 miles up in the air. Do you really think that you would actually be able to see it? Not a chance. Okay? Go outside and see when planes. If you live in a city, okay, you can see planes up in the air, airliners, especially if you're close to an airport. Keep in mind, however, that in a city, all those planes are either coming in for landing or they're taking off. So their height is at best a couple thousand, 4,000 feet above the air. They're not flying at their cruising altitude, which is around 35, 40,000 feet. To see a plane flying at 35, 40,000 feet, which is less than 5 miles up in the air, you have to go out into the countryside. Okay, so once a plane, wherever the plane taking off, like if it's flying east, they have a certain path. If they're flying west or south or whatever, they have a certain path. You can drive out a few miles out in the countryside and then watch. Once these planes have reached cruising altitude, you'll see that they are much, much, much smaller than what you see them, the size that you see when you're living in a city. And if they become that small at a height of like 4 or 5 miles up in the air, and the ISS is no bigger than a jumbo jet, maybe just almost a little bit bigger perhaps, but not much, you know, and it's up at 400 miles in the air, do you really think that it's going to be visible even with all kinds of lights on it? And also keep in mind the factor light pollution around cities, okay? And when people say they can go out in their backyard and can see the ISS, now this light pollution is apparently blocking out whole stars, which are supposedly these giant suns that are up in the air. So if this light pollution is blocking out these stars that you can't see them in your city, you think that the ISS, which is like 1 billionth or whatever the size of any star, maybe even 1 trillionth, something like that, that you would actually be able to see it even if it's got a few lights on it. So if you go to Google, you see artificial satellites orbiting Earth, and you come up with a whole bunch of images. Okay, as you can see here. Now let's pick this image for example. Okay, so here's this image of a nice round ball, and it's showing the satellite on top here. All right, so let's take a look here at this beautiful image that they have created. Right here we go. Let's make it bigger. Okay, so there it is. Now look at the size of that satellite. Okay, an average satellite is no bigger than a small car or a mid-sized car, and it gets as big as like a small school bus. Does this satellite here look like to you that it is the size of a school bus? In comparison to this Earth, if the circumference of the Earth is something like 25,000 miles or something, like how big do you think this satellite they're showing is? Okay, this would be like a few thousand miles wide, you know. So these images that are on Google that you see online, there's obviously a fake, painting or something, or a computer generated image like that this one is. What they show you is disproportionate size objects, and there's a reason behind it. Okay, because if they showed you the actual dimensions of how small this satellite should be in comparison to the size of the Earth, it would have to be shown as invisible. It would be like a speck that you would need like a electron microscope even to just find it on there. Okay, therefore, don't look at these images and start thinking that this is real, because the size differential is so great that it is an impossibility that 400 miles up in the air you would be able to see an object that small. Satellites, which are about the size at best of a small school bus, and they're flying at 400 miles up in the air, 2, 3, 400 miles up in the air, do you really think that you can see them? No, you cannot. So what you're seeing there is not the space station, and it's not satellites. It is something is there, that is those lights that are streaking across there, but they are not what you are being told. So keep these things in mind. It's called perspective. It's called range of vision that that prevents us from seeing things at a distance. Okay, and this also shows you, now if you were to play this video backwards in reverse, you will see how quickly this plane, becomes smaller and smaller and will disappear from sight. And that is a very good lesson on the laws of perspective as to why things, they seem to be a different shape or a different distance than they actually are, because it is basically our eyes playing tricks on us. We can see these things, but the interpretation may not necessarily be what is supported by fact. Anyhow, do your own research. I just wanted to post this here. I took some other videos from the plane which I will post on later, because they also show us some very interesting facts. Thank you for listening. This is Paul Sandhu.
What is a man advantaged if he gain the whole world and lose himself or be cast away? For whosoever shall be ashamed of me and of my words, of him shall the Son of Man be ashamed. And he said unto them all, if any man will come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross daily and follow me. What is a man advantaged if he gain the whole world and lose himself or be cast away? For whosoever shall be ashamed of me and of my words, of him shall the Son of Man be ashamed. Whosoever will save his life shall lose it, and whosoever will lose his life for my sake